And we are back. Hello and welcome to another Molby On The Spot. I'm Trev Downey and I'm joined, of course, by the Liverpool legend that is Jan Molby. Good evening, Jan.
Good evening, Trevor. How are you, my old friend?
I'm very good, and there's a lot to talk about, dude. So we should just get cracking right into it. There's so much we want to review, just so everyone knows what we're going to try and get through. We'll review that Bournemouth game, talk about the new boys, how they got on, any issues you see, because there are a few, how we addressed them and so on. We got to talk about the transfer window. I know it's everybody's kind of pet subject at the moment, but we do have to address it a little bit because there's some stories that broke only last night. Well, changes to the stories. So we'll talk Isak, we'll talk Guehi and any others that you think. We'll also talk outgoings and maybe a word or two for this new kid, Leoni, as well. And of course, we'll look ahead to this very, very controversial game that's looming ahead now on Monday evening against Newcastle. But let's start, if we can, if it's okay with you, with a look back at the Bournemouth match before we get to any of that more controversial stuff. And listen, it's a start of 3 points on the board, Jan. We could say a whole lot about it. We could pull it apart. It's not really what we do here, but I would like to get your take on what maybe something you saw that's negative and needs to be addressed and something you saw that worked well.
So I think we had a feeling, Trevor, that we're going to be entertaining to watch. And I think we saw that. Yeah, okay, the fact that Bournemouth sold almost all the defenders might have helped a little bit in terms of us being able to score 4 goals. The negative, Trev, for me is the distance between our players. You know, I think the distances are too big. I'm looking at the distances from Virgil van Dijk to Kirkus. I'm looking at the distance between the players who once they came in at half-time, Bournemouth and their manager, I know that we came out, first 50 minutes of the second half was the best we played, wasn't it? We scored 2-0 and we were really on top. But I think their manager might have had a word at half-time and gone, listen, there's areas here. You know, this Liverpool team isn't as compact as we normally experience. And I'm worried about the distances between the players. I mean, the easy bit is always Kirkus. Kirkus didn't have a good game. But how many times, Trevor, when you think back, did you almost get that feeling? He's in no man's land, isn't it? He's in a no man's land. Is he closing down the fullback? Is he marking the wide guy? Is he chucking in to help Virgil van Dijk? But he wasn't the only one. And I thought it was for 20 minutes in the second half, when they got on top and scored their 2 goals, I thought that was from that game, it was a worry. Going forward, Trevor. And I think we did this last year, didn't we? We had some games last year, and then on this show, we were kind of going, I'm worried about the next game. I'm not sure there is any need to be worried about the next game because I think we'll put it right, and I think we'll be okay, isn't it? But as a one-off, there were certain elements of that game that would slightly worry. And you also saw the reaction from, you know, almost everybody who was at the game who kind of said, yes, great. It was a terrific game to start the season, but wasn't it, Trevor? Bang. And we're back, you know. But there was plenty to worry about. But if you are worried about nature, then you'll obviously be worried about the next one, which is Newcastle and Arsenal, isn't it? I'm not worried about nature. You know, I think with the time that we have in between the games and the fact that Gravenberch is coming back, I think we'll be okay. But we have to be better. But we've done a lot, Trevor. You know, and the question is, we're going to do more in terms of transfers. Is it too much? You know, it still looks like we're trying to fit people in. Florian Wirtz did what he does. But, you know, we also got to get used to that type of because we're used to playing a different way. I mean, we used to go to other people to look for our chances. Now we have a central guy, and his expectation will be, you know, when he speaks about, I met Arne Slot and he told me what he was going to do with me. Well, we can all second guess what that was. Have him centrally. Everything goes through you, boy, yeah? You know, so we also got to get used to that.
Adaptation is going to be huge. I think you're dead right. It's interesting you mentioned the spaces, and I wonder, let me throw a couple of things at you. A fitter Alexis, you know, with more match time in his legs, the return of Gravenberch, as you say, would those two things help mitigate that a little bit? I think the Kirkes thing, you're dead right. It was done to death. The kid was playing his debut. We see him there. He's at the PFA Awards with the left back position. award, standing beside all our other lads who won awards. That's enough said about that kid. He's a very, very good footballer. We don't need to question whether he's just suddenly become a bad footballer. That's nonsense. But I wonder, will these distances, as you mentioned, that kind of disjointed look, will it settle when we understand what the flow is like? The flow going through Flo Wirtz, the flow that used to go directly to Mo Salah, and we used to, Mo became our playmaker as such. He looked very isolated at times in that first half. I'd have that in common with you. I wouldn't be a worrier either. I'm choosing to believe, Jan, that more fitness for Alexis, the reintroduction of Grav, and here's where we're getting towards something that we'll talk about with the Newcastle game. Do you see a situation where Grav, Mac, Dom, and Florian Wirtz are in the team? Because that's kind of where I'm leaning. I think Cody might be the one who suffers there. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's very possible. Cody, I mean, he got himself a goal and he does okay. He's quite a tactically bright footballer, Cody. But, and I'm not suggesting that we're already moving past him, but I think there will be a number of games where the manager will be thinking twice about how to best get the best from these boys. And you will certainly have Dom and Wirtz who can play in that kind of role. It wouldn't be the same role as Gakpo plays. But this is also something to do with our fullbacks, isn't it? What exactly is the role? Now, Kirkis couldn't have been any sure of what his role was at Bournemouth. Yeah, bang, overlap, underlap, whatever, that was his role. When he's come to Liverpool now and we play a bit more of a tactical game. I mean, even on the other side, it wasn't so evident with Frimpong. But you do see that Frimpong, because he's so quick, he arrives there very quick, doesn't he? Before Mo can blink, he's there. He's either right on top of him or he's run beyond him. Whereas Trent was a different type of player, because Trent was quite happy to find some space so he could be the playmaker. Frimpong is not that kind of player. He doesn't want to find space so he can play with the ball. He wants to find space so he can run. And sometimes he runs into most space. So also we need to work on that.
Yeah, fine tuning basically is what we're saying, and we will get back to the selection end of things when we're looking forward towards Newcastle. But just maybe another couple of words on the Bournemouth thing, to focus on something positive. The goal and general performance, I thought, of Ekitike up top, really, really impressive. Some people were questioning what Wirtz did. I think they were looking for, the killer pass, a glorious assist, a wonder goal. That's what they were expecting. And when they didn't get that, they were a little bit underwhelmed, some people. I thought he was very tidy in his play, and I thought there was lots to enthuse about. We talked about Kirkes. I thought Frimpong was very bright, as you've mentioned, especially in his movement. But the real outstanding one of the new boys was Ekitike, wasn't he? He kind of... he's overperforming our expectations. I would have said, well, certainly mine. Yeah, I didn't have. I was less hopeful of him hitting the ground running than he has.
I don't know whether it was on this show, Trevor, but I think it might have been on Liverpool TV, but we were talking about Ekitike, and I said he's the one who's impressed me the most. But also probably from the starting point of expectations, because I thought we're going to need to work with this guy. All the talent is there, but we kind of need to put it back. Need to put it together. But that doesn't appear to be the case, does it? He's got a game already. He's got a game with and without the ball. And I think that's important for Arne, the fact that he's already got a game without the ball as well, where he takes defenders away, creates space. And also he fills up well, isn't he? So he was really, really impressive. He had a good 60, 65 minutes in him, where he played really well.
Yeah, and when you look at the way that he plays football, Jan, do you see a situation where there is that versatility there that, I was talking about maybe having to change it so we have more bodies around the centre of the park against Newcastle, especially when you've got big cloggers like Joe Linton going kicking lads up in the air. Do you see a role where he could almost play very well as part of almost like a two with Mo, that the two of them could do a few bits together? He does seem to have that versatility. He's capable of coming from the left. He's capable of laying the ball off. I loved his target man stuff, Jan. That was great to see.
I mean, I think he's capable of playing in a number of systems. I think we can play 4-2, 4-2-4. We can play 4-4-2 if needs be. And I think there's a number of guys who can play up alongside him. I don't think there'll be a problem to him because he's so aware. That's the one thing, isn't you always look and you go, I love players who are aware. Funny enough, I was in Denmark and watching a sort of second tier game the other week, and it was a very good game, Trevor. technically very, very good. But it was that awareness, so you kind of go, why did you play at this level? Awareness. They're just not aware of what's around them, whether that's teammates, whether that's opposition. And that was the one thing I took away. I really enjoyed the game, but I was just thinking, yeah, okay, this is the level, because he just, but this kid's got really, really good awareness, and that does surprise me. I just didn't think he was that type of a player.
Yeah, well, long may it continue. A word for the manager. We on Raw afterwards, we were a little bit critical of Arne's substitutions, his game plan in general. Yeah. And we were of the opinion that, look, that guy's entitled to a bad day at the office just as much as anybody else is. He doesn't have to prove anything to anybody. It's very unlikely it'll be that sort of disjointed again. Again, the Warriors might say, oof, but we were inclined to think, yeah, look, it's a one-off. But you have to be honest and say it wasn't great from him on the day either.
No, it was a minor nightmare, wasn't it, Trevor? To replace your two fullbacks at a stage where this is Arne Slot time, isn't it? We get to that time, 60, 70 minutes, we're winning the game, and this is when we shut it down. Yeah, bang, we go bang. But he didn't, did he? He put a rocket underneath the game by the substitutions and the fact that Endo had to play right back, and they very quickly went okay, and he just kept going into that space, didn't he? Endo, again, tactically, he's a very cute player, but when he's got to run, there is wide players in the Premier League who are quicker than him. And also another thing, Trevor, and I was doing commentary on the game, also then they come back at 2-2, and then we take off Ekiteke and Wirtz. And my first thought is, we got no goals on the pitch, kind of Mo. But we haven't got a lot of goals on the pitch. All of a sudden, that'd be okay. Says come on, and Joe Gomez and Curtis Jones and Robbo and all that. And you think we haven't got a lot of goals on the pitch. We need goals, because that was much more than just a game, isn't it? You didn't want to start the season by losing 2 points, and with the whole tribute to Shota and his brother. And, it was much more than that, wasn't it? And then all of a sudden you go, where's our goals? I know that people got Mo scored, wherever many he scored, isn't it? But Chiesa managed to come up with one, didn't he? I mean, it was just, yeah, it was kind of that night, wasn't it, Trevor? It was that kind of a night, wasn't it? But the atmosphere, Trevor, I was there, 4:45. I mean, the place, it was electric. It was a bit like Spurs when we beat them 5-1. The anticipation and people everywhere, and the buzz and all the brand new shirts, and yeah, it was a terrific evening.
It really felt like it, and I'm sure you were aware of the really unfortunate disturbance that happened, where we had a fella who decided to display a huge amount of ignorance and hatred towards a footballer, of all things. I thought the player in question had the best possible answer in the way that he conducted himself. I loved his responses afterwards, his reactions to how the refereeing team, the management of Liverpool, the staff of Liverpool, the fans in general reacted. It all felt like we got past a very ugly thing with the minimum of fuss, but an awful lot of that was down to the dignity that man carried himself with. I thought that was very impressive, Jan, as was his performance on the park. He's a hell of a player.
I was just going to say, Bournemouth as a whole were terrific. The fans were terrific with the Shota thing, right the way through with You Never Walk Alone. The manager was terrific after. The Semenyo was terrific. And I also thought that they were terrific, considering the players that they'd sold. And, I spoke to some Bournemouth fans before, and they went, oh, this could be 5 or 6, We lost so many players, isn't it? But no doubt they've got a good manager. They've got a good team to buy and sell their players, and they'll be okay. So they more than played their part. They were a real tribute to themselves, that's for sure.
You spoke about Chiesa and his impact, and it was so much better than we could have dreamed. It seems to have thrown a little bit of spanner in the works, and there was all sorts of tweets from the boys who usually are in the know this week saying that now all of a sudden the door is open to him staying around. And I think that might be, Jan, more of a function of the fact that Newcastle can't do any business and have proved to be completely inept when it comes to attracting players. As a result, the whole Isak thing has been essentially banjaxed and may well not happen. And so the chain is not flowing the way it should flow. And we may be thinking, right, if we're going to have to go to plan B won't be 2 players now, it'll be just 1. And this is me being optimistic. And so all of a sudden, Chiesa becomes an option. Now, I personally don't see why he wouldn't be, but the only reason I do, and this is my common sense kicking in here, is, well, he has proved to be very unpopular with the manager in terms of him wanting to use him on the park. I'm sure he's a brilliant lad, just like Harvey Elliott is. I'm sure the manager really admires that about him, but he doesn't give him the minutes when the minutes were there and he was available for them. That's the sample size we have to work with, Jan. Could something like this, and again, just from your own experience in the game, could something like this have changed the situation dramatically in Arne Slot's head? Because I'm kind of doubting that.
I'm very much doubting that as well, Trev. I mean, I was just about to say what you said, and we spoke about Arne Slot before. And in many ways, Arne Slot is quite easy to read in terms of what players he rates and what players he doesn't rate. So the fact that Chiesa has come on and he scored a goal, I don't think that greatly changed the way that Arne Slot feels about it. But I do, however, think that the people who buy players at Liverpool might just think that one thing we don't do, we don't panic, yeah? We don't end up buying players that we don't really want. We don't end up buying players that we don't really have a plan with. So because of that, and because of the whole Isak thing and whatever, they might just think, well, okay, we will get some minutes from Isak, and we will also trust that we got so much flexibility in whether it's Gakpo, whether it's Florian Wirtz, Mo Salah, Dom, whatever, they can play in a number of positions. So we'll probably be okay, because it is kind of the one thing that we've been pretty good at, is not panicking. I mean, we all remember the Virgil van Dijk thing, and I remember, some of my old teammates coming out and saying, well, if we can't get him, surely we can get somebody else, surely we can find somebody else, you know what I mean? But Liverpool don't really buy into that, do they? This is who we want, and it's the same thing with Alexander Isak, isn't it? It's just a question of what it takes, or even how long we might be prepared to wait.
So to tee that up, and we'll get specifically to transfer stuff, but we'll start with Isak, and you kind of teed us up nicely there. But just to tee it up a little bit, there's an awful lot of talk about a plan B. I think I see someone even in the chat there talking about a plan B. I've been kind of driving that bus as well. And it's my kind of assumption that even though, like you said, we have form for saying this is the one we want, God knows we do. We've spent summer after summer doing it with midfielders. You spoke about the Virgil one, which at least had a happy ending of sorts. So we do have form for it, but it's been my assumption that, look, you can't sell the amount of attacking players that we have sold and are still looking to offload without a plan B in place. That's, again, maybe that's just daft, but that's my version of common sense. But I'm hearing no rumors at all, no whispers about what that plan B might be, either in the attack or if Mark Guehi doesn't work out. We got the kid Leoni, and we'll talk about him. But are you hearing anything? I mean, you've got an ear there closer to the ground than we would. Is there anything by way of solid rumor or suggestion? Because I'm not hearing any.
So you spoke before about the more reliable sources at Anfield, and they're the same people that I either see at the matches or that I communicate with during the week, and they can't even come up with a rumor. And they're also none the wiser in terms of Isak than what they're still telling me the same thing about Isak that they told me 4 weeks ago. What it might require for us to be able to get him. Obviously, yesterday, I'm not sure yesterday helped anything. If anything, I think it might just have made Newcastle's owners more determined not to lose face.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm going with that as well. Let's just have a look, and I'll share this with yourself, and hopefully everybody else can see that too. This is the statement that you're alluding to that came out from Alexander Isak last night while the PFA awards were on, if you don't mind. He says, "I'm proud to be recognised by my fellow professionals with a place in the PFA Premier League Team of the Season for 24-25. First and foremost, I want to thank my teammates and everyone at Newcastle who has supported me along the way. I'm not at the ceremony tonight. With everything going on, it didn't feel right to be there. I've kept quiet for a long time while others have spoken. That silence has allowed people to push their own version of events. even though they know it doesn't reflect what was really said and agreed behind closed doors. The reality is that promises were made, and the club has known my position for a long time. To now act as if these issues are only emerging is misleading. When promises are broken and trust is lost, the relationship can't continue. That's where things are for me right now, and why change is in the best interest of everyone, not just myself. And that's signed by the man himself. Now, Jan, there's a lot there, my friend. There's a lot to pick apart. And you saw the response by Newcastle. You've alluded to that already, which seemed to firmly shut the door on any chance of a move. And addressing the fact that the conditions of sale were not met. So there's all this over and back about whether or not Liverpool's offer was derisory or insulting, and we've all heard that, and it sparked a lot of debate amongst people. I'm not really interested in dragging you into that, but I would love to get your take. You have previously spoken very clearly, thinking that you made your feelings on it clear last week, that Isak's behaviour, whereas perhaps understandable in the lad's own head, wasn't very helpful. It was alienating him, and it wasn't in any way a thing that you felt comfortable with. I think an awful lot of people are in the same boat. This one is the nail in the coffin, man. This is, how do you come back from, how do they as a group, him and them, come back from this? They can say all they want about how the door is open, but man, that's pretty final from Isak, isn't it? So what do you make of this? What are your thoughts about where things currently stand on the back of that?
So normally, Trevor, in situations like that, I think we're desperate to hear from the people involved. Yeah, you kind of go, well, why don't you say anything? Now, in this instance, I think he should have kept quiet. Nobody is in doubt that he wants to leave Newcastle, but as it stands, he's not really attributed to any of those quotes, is he? Because he hasn't come out and said anything. Yes, he's done what he's done, isn't he? But so far, he stayed away from verbally saying, I want to leave the club, although nobody's in any doubt. And I just find that when you it was obviously last night, and it was my wife who first said, have you seen this? So I read it, and then I read it again. And the two words, promises and issues, and I'm going, go on, tell me, what is it?
Yeah.
Tell me what
the
promises are. Puts Newcastle on the back foot, because if you're telling the truth, they would then have to come out and lie. He's left the door open for them to come back, and for Newcastle and the owners to reply so quick, where they've just gone bang. You know, we made no promises, and the conditions have not been met, and we don't think they'll be met. Now, he could have come out and said, I spoke to A, who said or promised, and we were going to do and whatever. So I think he left the door open. There's no doubt when you read that statement, he's had help. Somebody's helped put that statement together. Whoever that is, I would suggest don't pay them for that statement. In fact, don't pay them in the future either, because they've done you absolutely no favour whatsoever. But Trevor, I'm 62 years of age, and you're entitled to call me old-fashioned. But you know, when you have an issue with your club where you still have 3 years left of your contract, you speak to the club, you negotiate with the club, then you train and play, then you negotiate again, then you train and play. That's the way I was brought up, you know. And I just for my life, don't get why they couldn't be talking to the club, see if they can resolve their difficulties, why they can still train and be available to play. Because let's not kid ourselves, Trevor. What are you contracted to do? Train and play, you know. And the moment you don't do that is the moment that so many people lose respect for you. Now, at the moment, I'm disappointed with him. But of course, the moment he walks through the doors at Anfield and whatever, we'll be absolutely delighted, isn't it? But he's not covering himself in glory. And I just think that by the minute, he makes it more and more difficult. We know what the conditions are. The conditions are that Newcastle can sign at least 2 strikers. At the moment, they can't get 1 through the doors. And also, there's a transfer fee that needs to be met, whether that's 150, which also Alexander Isak is pushing Newcastle towards standing their ground on the fee. So the fans can say, well, you got bullied by Liverpool, you know. So, yeah, he should have kept his mouth quiet, Trevor.
It's gotten so ugly. It's bringing out some wild reactions in people, and you understand fans are one-eyed. They see things only from the perspective of their own club, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably as guilty of it as anybody, but I do try to have some sort of semblance of seeing all sides. I get why they would be pissed off. I get why Newcastle fans would find this all very frustrating. Of course, I do, because if you're a Liverpool fan of any number of years at all, and you don't get this, then you weren't paying attention when we were having nightmares with Torres, with Suarez, with Coutinho. We've been here, but I've seen an awful lot of people, just losing the plot on both sides. It's a tricky one, Jan, and what I just want to tease. I don't want to get us embroiled in any sort of one side or the other. Just the honest chat that we have is what people like on this show. So you touched on it there, and I can't help wondering myself, the broken promises thing. If he actually fully believes that that's a point that's worth making. I saw David Lynch talking on this channel earlier on in the day, and he was chatting about how that probably alludes to a contract offer that was an improvement in conditions that was touted and then withdrawn. And honestly, if David's saying it, it's probably something he's definitely heard. He's not going to speculate wildly about something like that. Does that change your view on then a fella maybe deciding to down tools in the way that he has, because one side is not dealing justly with the other, or at least as they have promised? Would that color your view of his behavior? I'm just trying to see, is there a way to walk it back for him? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there always is, half a way of walking something back, isn't it, Trevor? But I just find that football, broken promises, Trevor. That's Trevor. If I went through my career and the things that I was promised, I'm not talking just in terms of contracts or whatever, in terms of playing at the weekend or whatever the plan is, isn't it? You know what I mean? So it's a land of broken promises. But I just think that he could have done a bit more. If that's how he feels, then he should have named some people. I think he should have named Amanda Staveley, who's no longer with the club, because she was the link between the owners and the players. I think he should have named the sporting director who was there for 5 minutes, Paul Mitchell, if that is the case. But also, if he's been unhappy for 12 months, then we come back to probably the guy who helped him with the statement. What's he been doing for 12 months? If he hadn't been able to come to some kind of a conclusion. But of course, there is some, there's nothing worse than being promised something that, and I've experienced players at Anfield that's been promised new contracts, and then in the blink of an eye, something had happened. And quite a bit was to happen in the early 90s when Graham Souness took over as a manager, and there was some people led to believe that there was new contracts and they were part of the future. And still to this day, and they're equally as old as me in their 60s, still don't get it. I'm still frustrated because that's the ego in us, isn't it? You know what I mean? They offered me a new, they give me a new contract, and of course I understand that, isn't it? But I just think there's a way of, he could have dealt with that better. He could have dealt with that better, Trevor, and it was so much easier to come with a solution, or come to a solution in the end.
Yeah, it feels like it. It feels like there was a point where this tipped, and probably only long after it will we get the truth of what has actually happened. But there is a further complication. We can talk about, I've touched on plan B, and you've backed up what I've been suggesting, that there is nothing out there anyway. That doesn't mean that Liverpool don't have loads in the pipeline. They're very good at what they do, these guys. Let's say that first and foremost. Let's not all of a sudden just start, running around with our hair on fire. But I will say, I'm not hearing anything. Similarly with the defence, there's an awful lot of talk about Mark Guehi. And I'm not sure. First of all, I'll get your opinion on him and whether you think he is the lad that we should be looking for in this particular moment. There's a David Ornstein tweet on Guehi talking about how Liverpool are still interested in him. But the main gist of this tweet is Newcastle retain a firm interest in Jørgen Strand Larsen, no more advanced than any of the other options. So we know there's many of them that don't seem to be coming to fruition. But the 25-year-old Wolves forward is among a small group being considered. Talks via intermediaries, and Norway International's keen on NUFC. And you can see in the background there is a certain Mr. Mark Guehi, because there's all sorts of ongoing stuff going around with Guehi. He's not linked to the Newcastle attacker stuff for us, but there seems to be chains everywhere. So clubs are waiting to see, can they get someone in before they let someone go out. I get that. That's absolutely fine. That's how you have to cover your own back. It is frustrating for fans who want everything done yesterday. And it makes you feel like a little bit of a dope as well, Jan, if you're saying, well, there's still like a week and a half left, and assuming that something will get done in that time as well. Now, I know you like a flutter every so often, a cheeky £2 here or there. If you were to lean into your feelings on where these things are going, let's start with Mark Guehi, because it is the one that won't go away. Apparently, the differentiation in the views of the clubs is at 10 million. Liverpool wanting to pay 35 and Palace looking for 45. That's apparently where things are at the moment, or at least that's what's being put out there, man. That's what's being put out there. If you were to bet on the Mark Guehi thing happening, would you say it's likely? Or do you have that kind of hinky feeling that it's getting a bit too close to the end now?
Well, I think we have a good starting point, Trevor, in that we have a club that is desperate to sell. There's no doubt that the world knows that he's for sale. Crystal Palace ain't going to allow him to walk out the door in 12 months' time on a free transfer. So that is a massive, massive advantage for everybody who's interested. The fact that you know that Crystal Palace will take your call, and you know they'll listen. They'll listen to any offer you make. And it's just how we constructed the deal. Listen, so yeah, the worry is that this was kind of done 7 or 10 days ago. You know, that we were hearing, wasn't it? It's only a matter of time before we sign Guehi. Just the last little bit to be ironed out. We're still not quite there, Trevor. And it all makes me come back to, is Arne Slot quite chilled about the fact that Gravenberch, Endo, they can play centre half if we need to. I don't know. In this instant, unless Leoni is, wow, you know, but he's only 18, isn't he? And he's come from the Italian league and whatever. So, yeah, my £2 will still go on. It's happening because we do need somebody. So I do think we'll push it through. And if we can, I thought a great sale over the weekend, one of Ben Doak to Bournemouth, and what we're now working on potentially. Harvey Elliott, I think Leipzig are firming up their interest. So that'll just be what it takes for us to go, listen, make the phone call, make the deal. You know, because that at some stage, that's how you'll approach a deal, isn't it, Trevor? Ring him up, make the deal. Whatever it takes, we'll make the deal. I'm not talking about massively overpaying. I'm just talking, let's work it out, yeah. But don't put the phone down until the deal's done, because they also want to sell, isn't it? So let's get it done. So you're my £2. It's going on. Mark Guehi will be a Liverpool player come the 1st of September.
Yeah, I'm hoping you're right there, man. I'm hoping you're right. You mentioned Ben Doak. Let's just have a quick look at this, the details of it. The thing on the official website there just has, you know, that he finalized his move and, you know, talks about his loan spells and all the rest of it. Because if we're being honest, Jan, it's really only the loan spells that we can talk about with Ben Doak's career. And I think, again, I stand open to correction on this, but I think the initial amount that we laid out for this kid was something around the 600,000 mark. I think there were maybe 10 appearances. Was it around 100 minutes odd? And we are taken in 25 million. That seems like we should probably just relax a little bit about the lads who are doing the business here, doesn't it? Because that's one of those deals like Jordan Ibe and stuff like that where you just go, well, fair play. We seem to be good at this.
Kelleher, Kwanzaa, Phillips, Trent, Tyler Morton, and now this kid, yeah, they cost us 600 grand combined. And we sold them in this window for just over 100 million. It's mind-blowing, isn't it, Trevor? It is absolutely mind-blowing how good these people are at selling. When you look at how other clubs, take Arsenal, can't get rid of any of their players, can't get a fee. They've sold a couple of players, Tavares and Marquinhos, Brazilian. They haven't even got what we got for giving Real Madrid Trent 14 days early. So the boys are very good. The only thing I will say, and I don't know whether it's appropriate or not, but Ben Doak wasn't really for me, Trevor. I could just never see him making the breakthrough at Liverpool. I just never thought he was cute enough, clever enough on the ball. Yes, instantly, because you can't miss the pace, very, very quick. But I just didn't think there was enough. And his little loan spell last season, the Middlesbrough, where he did well, didn't change my mind. But having said all of that, Trevor, I have massive respect for Bournemouth and their ability to find really, really good players. So good luck to the kid. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And speaking of kids, we do have one more to talk about very quickly, and that's our new Italian. There he is. Impressive looking young man. There's a Giovanni Leoni fact file, everything you need to know about the little lion here on the official website. We can just go down through it really quickly. Debuts for Padova in Series C in 2023, just that long ago. His first taste of senior football, 16 years and 3 months. And from that to now, becoming a record breaker at Parma, 12 appearances for Sampdoria in his half season. Parma moved to sign him. In his 6th appearance, he became the club's youngest defender in history to score in the top flight, aged 18 years and 50 days. Style of play is described as very good with aerial duels, 60.6% of duels, 63% of aerial duels won. Comfortable with the ball at both feet, passing accuracy of 88.7, and so on and so forth. Now, I know you are a bit like me when it comes to stats. They're all nice and all the rest of it, but let's see the lad play. We've got all sorts of tributes here from the assistant coach at Sampdoria to, I saw Paolo Maldini, Andrea Pirlo's here being mentioned as well. Arrigo Sacchi, Jan. I mean, you and I remember how important Arrigo Sacchi was to football. If there was a manager and a team that was better in your time, I'd like to hear about them. I'd like to hear about them. Maybe hang on to that just question in the background. But Sacchi says, if someone is good, if someone has their head in the right place, it's immediately obvious. A person can have 200 Serie A games under their belts and still not possess the qualities Leoni displayed in his first half season as an adult. Talent knows no age. Let's also give him the opportunity to make mistakes. At 18, some mistakes are expected and can be forgiven. And in any case, Leoni won't make many. He's a tough guy who's already learned the fundamental lesson. Keep your head down and work hard. Now, that's just incredible to hear from a fella as, I don't know, as important in football history as Arrigo Sacchi. And we had Paolo Maldini again talking him up and talking about how wonderful he is. The kid comes highly recommended, Jan. It's an exciting one. If he got maybe, I don't know, something similar to what Kwanzaa got in terms of minutes this season, that would surely represent a real success, wouldn't it?
Yeah, no, at 18 years of age. No, absolutely. Yeah. The thing with the quotes there, Trevor, is that none of these people really had to make any quotes about him, did they?
True.
They've gone out the way because what they're seeing here is a special young talent. On one hand, I'm kind of gutted I haven't seen him play a bit more than what I have. But if he has the quality that Sacchi mentions, then instantly you will notice that, won't you? And that doesn't mean that the first time you see him, he has to play well. But there'll be some characteristics in his game that you'll go, yeah, I see what people are thinking about this boy. And so I'm looking forward to it. I think he's got potentially a big future. I mean, 18 as a centre-half is very, very young, isn't it? But for him already to be at the level where he's at, it looks like another really, really good spot.
Not too many, actually, when you look back on it, who have been a success at that tender age. We do remember Maldini being like world class and impressive as a very young player. But the earliest I remember him being that was 19. At least that's what it was in my head. 18, of course, is a big ask. Just a quick word on that, on Arrigo Sacchi and that Milan team. Did you ever see anything better in your time playing ball or around the game?
Liverpool, Trevor.
Of course.
Let me tell you something. In the 80s, and our manager was Sir Kenny, and obviously he enjoyed his own Liverpool team, but there was two other teams he really enjoyed watching, which was AC Milan and Denmark. And what he enjoyed was the flexibility in both teams. So it's the one thing, due to the European ban, we kind of look at and go, so from the ban 85, the first 3 years of whoever won it, Steaua Bucharest, PSV Eindhoven, Benfica, whoever it was, you kind of go, we'd have taken all of them. But then you get to the AC Milan era, and then you go, this is when it would have been interesting.
Yeah.
That's when it would have been interesting, is it? Because, obviously, you mentioned some of them, isn't it? But, three guys I knew really well from my time, Netherlands, and, Rijkaard and Basten and Gullit as well, and, and I still talk to Ruud, and he goes, Jan, he said, and equally, he said, we used to sit in Italy and watch you guys and think, bloody hell, they can play a bit, he said, but we had the European stage and we could call ourselves the best team in Europe, certainly for a number of years, he said. But yeah, I like to go toe-to-toe with them. But yeah, as I said before, Kenny loved that Milan team. He'd come back on the bus and we were playing cards, and he'd go, can I have a one? You go, fuck no, how Kenny, we're playing cards. Yeah. And he'll go, this is in the old days of Channel 4, Italian football and all that, isn't it? And he'll go, did you see what they did and how they did that? And then he played and this and that. And yeah. Oh, fuck
Yeah, listen, man, we've been doing this so long. I just had this feeling in the back of my head. If I cast this line out about have you seen a better team, maybe Jan will take the bite and say Liverpool. Because, dude, that obsessed me. It's obsessed me all my life as a Liverpool fan. What would it have been like to see our 87, 88 through to 90 team going against that lot? It would have been just amazing. And as you
it would have been incredible, Trevor. Incredible. Absolutely
just
incredible.
And of course, I think, it just changes everything as well in terms of the European success and all that. But, very, very different circumstances around why that wasn't possible. Circumstances which kind of raised their head this week in a debate about the Chiesa song, but we won't go there because that's there's an awful lot of words have been spent on that. Let's just start pointing in the direction of the Newcastle game, because if we're being honest, it's going to be very monumental sort of a face-off. It's got all sorts of extra weight on it. There's the whole narrative behind the scenes. But I think just from a footballing point of view, it's going to be an interesting one to have a look at. Now, if we have a quick look at the Newcastle performance there in the most recent game, hopefully this should come up for you here. Yeah. So they're the stats against Villa in the 0-0 that Newcastle had. 16 shots to Villa's 3 on target, where Villa had 3 shots and 3 on target. Newcastle had 61% of the ball, a good lot more passes as a result. Their accuracy and their passing better, less fouls than Newcastle. But at the end of the day, it's a 0-0. If we just take a quick look at how they lined up, Jan, this is how they went on the day. Nick Pope with Dan Burn and Cher in front of them. Trippier and Livramento, unsurprisingly. Joelinton, Tonali and Guimaraes, unsurprisingly. Barnes, Elanga and Gordon, the sort of slightly new look or changed up front line. And on their bench, they could call on Asula, who's probably likely to get more chances this year. Jacob Murphy, Lewis Miley, they've got Lewis Hall there, Sven Botman, the new boy, Malik Thiaw, Emil Kraft, Aaron Ramsdale, who's also new, and Park Sung-soo. So just before we start talking about what Liverpool are going to look like against this lot, What do you make of them as a potential threat on the day? You see that lineup, that 11. The first thing that I think your eye goes to, if it's anything like mine, is that midfield. It's quite the unit, Jan.
Yeah, no, I mean, the only thing you missed out from that game against Aston Villa is the red card for Aston Villa, which obviously makes a lot of the stats go in the advantage of Newcastle, because he played almost half an hour against 10 men, but couldn't score. Now, that wasn't really a surprise, was it, Trevor? When you look, Isak not playing, Callum Wilson has left. Who was going to score their goals? Especially when you go to 11 against 10 and they're pushing Aston Villa back. Where is that? That born goal scorer. They would be better suited to play in an away game on the break in transition because of the pace that they have, Anga and Anthony Gordon, whatever. So there is people thinking, because Eddie Howe somehow did it with Joe Linton, who came as a £40 million striker who couldn't hit a pound door, and he's now turned him into some kind of a bouncer in midfield, but he does very well for them. And a lot of people think, could he do the same with Anthony Gordon, turn him into a central striker? I don't think so. I think it's something to do with wanting to play there, isn't it, Trevor? And I think Anthony Gordon's going, I don't have to, because I'll play wide. I'm also the best wide left player we've got, isn't it? So I don't have to work at becoming a central striker. So again, I don't know quite what Newcastle will do, Trevor, and I've been at St James's Park a couple of times when they do this. They make the games unbearably hectic. It just becomes hectic from the first minute because of the noise from the stand, because of the way that they play, because of all the fouling in midfield and the energy and the intensity. And I've got a feeling that they're going to do everything they possibly can to unsettle and unruffle Liverpool. It's going to be one of those, I think, mad games of football.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right on that. It's hard to see how it could be any other way. And let's rewind then and sort of restructure our chat a little bit back towards where we were at the start. We have a little bit of time here in this last period to talk about Liverpool's 11, Liverpool's team, talking about the new boys. We've looked at some of them individually. We've talked about that. Let me just go back to this idea of a midfield. I saw a tweet going around during the week, Jan, or whatever they call them now on X. And it was a picture of Dom, of Grav, of Mac, and our new boy Flo Wirtz. And it was who's in midfield or who's getting dropped against Newcastle. And like I've said to you already, I for me, it's Cody's getting dropped. That's how I see it, because I'm trying to look around the team. Wirtz is not going to play. We're obviously going to be trying to do things, and as you said, work our system through this kid. You can't miss out on Dom's energy, can you? And he brings a lot more than that. Let's be honest. Gravenberch is. If he's half the player he was in the first half of last season, is kind of essential to us in there as well. And McAllister's our best midfielder. I don't think there's any doubt about that. We see him with a little statuette last night again in the team of the season. So, do you see any way that he can manipulate his pieces around the board and not have those four that we mentioned? Is there any way that Gravenberch, McAllister, and Dom Szoboszlai don't start, in your opinion? Is there something I'm not seeing?
Well, I think if the four you've just mentioned, the one he might not start will be McAllister, due to the nature of the game. But it always makes me wonder, Trevor, because when you look back last season, and I think the Manchester City away game was the most high profile, where we kind of went 4-4-2 and we went long because they wanted to press us. We went long and we had great success, didn't we? So I just wonder whether we might decide to play a bit of a 4-4-2 with Mo and Ekiteke central, and we're just going to go long because they'll want to press, won't they? They'll want to get the crowd up, and Anna might just decide the best thing to do is to go long. I would be amazed if we just carry on from the Bournemouth game. I think specifically we'd have used all these days leading up to the game to prepare ourselves for this challenge, because it is a unique challenge.
Yeah, it is. And it's interesting. I only get a chance to glance at the chat. It's more for you guys to entertain yourself most of the time here because we have an awful lot to get through on this show. We always do. And the conversation tends to flow. But I do see some concern around how the team may be operating. Someone mentioned the work rate that Bournemouth had was higher than ours, not something we'd be used to seeing. But there are mitigating circumstances there, aren't there, Jan? I mean, we do have Gravenberch to reintroduce. We do have a McAllister who's only on the road back, and maybe some people were surprised to see him start in the last two games and so on. But maybe that's the best way to get him up to fitness. And of course, there is the situation where you have this new wild card in Wirtz, who has undeniably got a high work rate, but may not necessarily be good at those particular aspects of the game, like screening and cutting off passing lanes and tracking runs and all that kind of stuff. So it is, to come full circle back to the point you made earlier on, it's going to be growing pains, isn't it? People are going to have to find that balance between themselves, and that just takes game time.
Yeah, and I also think it's something to do with the fact that we had Jurgen Klopp as our manager for a while, where it was very visible that we used to outrun the opposition. You know, that's what we used to outrun them, we used to outmuscle them, we used to outsprint them. And so many times last season, Trevor, we kind of discussed, well, how did we actually play? What was it that we did? Because it isn't always as visible as it was when Jurgen Klopp was the manager. So there's a lot more tactics involved, and I guess there is a sort of change in which players are going to cover the most ground for us. You know, what positions are the ones who are going to cover the ground for us. So yet again, I think what a lot had to do with, Trevor, that for the people who remember, we'd always convinced ourselves that we were back in 1987, hadn't we? You know, I mean, wait till we unleash this team. You know, it's going to be bang, bang, bang. Well, the difference was the 87 team hit the ground running, and everybody looked like they've been there for 100 years from the first game. That wasn't quite the same on the other day against Bournemouth. Hence the reason that people are getting worried. But also, you know, there's so much information available to you these days, Trevor, that in between games, you can get yourself into a panic mode, can't you? Where you're thinking, well, look at this and look at this and look at this. I would always recommend, Trevor, and for you, and for your mental health, is that watch the games, do your podcast, and make sure the next generation of Irish kids get the right education, Trevor. You know what I mean? Don't worry with too much to do with football in the week. Just look forward to the games.
Yeah, man, there's a lot of wisdom in that, and you know very well that's pretty much the same philosophy I have. I wanted to talk to you about a related matter because obviously we're going to be under pressure regardless of the presence of Alexander Isak because they have plenty of good attacking footballers and a lot of power running through from midfield and passing as well. And we saw a distinct weakness at the heart of our defence there. Virgil not looking at his absolute primo best. But we saw an Ibu Konate who was miles off it, you know, almost comically bad at one point on the defending on the second goal in particular. But there had been a lot of loose moments previous to that people just seem to have forgotten or didn't mention that were really apparent to me as I'm watching it, thinking I'm going to have to talk about this game immediately afterwards. And the word on the streets is that the contract is going to still continue to be an issue because it hasn't been signed. Apparently, the received wisdom is that an improved offer went to Konate's people and that wasn't accepted either. Now, this does present us with an issue because if we're going into the season and we get Mark Guehi and we've got Guehi, Van Dijk, Ibu Konate and Joey Gomez, and even allowing for the fact that Konate and Gomez have ongoing issues and the Virgil will need rests. If you have the kid there and he's top level and he can come in, or we'd be relying on that. We could all go into this season thinking, well, if they could stay fit, there's no better group. You'd be really happy with that. Mm. But if you've got a disgruntled or unsettled or a lad whose eye is not on the ball or who's had his head turned by a Real or a PSG, that's an issue. Now, I'm not attributing that to Ibu Konate. I don't know the man's personal mind state. Things he's saying are good. He's training very well. He seems to be happy. And I don't want to read too much into one bad performance, Jan. But it is a little bit of a concern for those people. Again, you don't have to be a worrier to be concerned that, like, could he go at the death? Could he go in the last day or two of the window? You know where I'm going with this.
I mean, yeah, it's not fair based on one game, Trevor, but it was a horrendous performance, wasn't it? From the moment he was anywhere near the ball, you thought, wow, he's just not on it today. One of the things that impressed us, I think I'm allowed to say us, Trevor, was how the three players last season carried on regardless of their contract situations.
Yeah.
You know, Virgil, Mo, and Trent. And I think that was a real feature. But I also think that it was kind of different for them, weren't they? You know, because they'd done it, they'd shown to the world what they were capable of, and they just carried on as normal. Whereas Konate is a little bit different. So, yeah, I think it's possibly rattled him. The fact that, well, you have to assume that him and his camp are thinking that Liverpool won't want to pay them what they want. So eventually it'll end up with him leaving, and most likely on a free transfer. Well, we know how the press is going to grow. You know, if that's the case, the nearer we get, we know how the press is going to grow. Is he capable of that? I don't know. I doubt it. So I worry. I don't know what he's capable of.
Part of me wishes he was grumbling in the same way that Virgil and Mo were doing, and making loads of people nervous that they were off and that the club were off their heads and they weren't going to do the right thing. And at the end, everything gets done. But, you know, you remember all the controversial moments, especially with Mo Salah. Part of me is wishing that Ibu was doing the same. At least it would show that desire to really want to be part of the club going forward. Again, we can't read too much into it because there's not enough known about it, but it is certainly complicating the transfer window situation for sure. Look, that's not going to go away until, what is it? We're on the 20th of August. We've got at least another 10 or 11 days of this nonsense that we have to wade through. At least one more show where we'll have to talk about it. Who knows what will have changed by then. But one thing we always do at the end of each show is get your idea for how you think the game is going to go. Now, there are a lot of factors at play here, man, but very interested to hear, to finish us off here, how you think the big game against Newcastle will go for the Reds.
Yeah, so we had a little look at their lineup before, Trevor, and we had a look at their bench. And I know a lot of folks have been on Isak, but they still got some good players. You know, that is a strong squad there. And the one thing that immediately catches my eye is the strong bench, which means that they'll probably be able to continue that intensity for the full 90 minutes because they'll make some really good substitutions from the bench. I think it's going to be a very, very difficult game to control. McAllister, again, he might be the one who misses out. Really, what we need is McAllister at his best to be able to control the game. I think it's going to be difficult. I think it's going to be a difficult game to control. They're going to be putting everything into long throw-ins, free kicks and corners, and intensity and noise, and obviously the fans won't be happy. I think we come away with anything from that game, even without a recognised goal scorer, which they haven't got one at the moment. I think if we come away with anything, considering everything that's involved in this game, I think we'll do well.
I am going to go out on a limb and suggest that you are suggesting a 0-0 or a score draw of some sort.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, we want to have a bit of entertainment, so my first things would be a 1-1 draw. But I think it'll be a proper sort of old-fashioned, energetic, physical game. You know, they're going to throw everything at it.
Let's hope there's one of those Stan Collymore moments at the end for Ekitike or Mo or something like. We'll lean into optimism. But as ever, Jan, I wanted to say thanks. It's great to get the season off to such a flying start. Looking back on the first game of the season, looking forward to the second. Feels like we're really in it now. Feels like we're back in our groove. And for answering all the questions and taking us in all the directions that I always drag you down, thanks very much.
Every August, Trevor, this bloody transfer window, isn't it? You know, it just throws a spanner in the works, isn't it? But we're nearly there, Trevor. 2 more big games to go before the window closes.
It's mad how we just want it done at this stage. It is remarkable. I hope you've been listening to the wisdom of Mr. Jan Molby there, and you're going to minimize the worry between now and when we speak to you next. I'm going to try and take that on board. Forget about football, watch some movies, read a book or something until Monday evening, and ignore how everyone else is doing. That's the plan anyway. Let's see how we get on with it. Jan and I'll be back with you next week, probably Thursday. That's our prediction, but we'll be back with you soon to talk to you about the Newcastle game and look ahead to the Arsenal one and all the other bits and pieces. Until then, good luck.